everybody, Wannabe Reviewer here, and welcome back to the Wannabe Podcast, episode 61. Now, before I begin this week's podcast, I just want to say, or I guess I just want to point out really quickly something kind of funny, that when I sat down to do episode 60, it's so funny that I never realized that episode 60 would be the last podcast of 2019. You know, if I had noticed, I probably would have said something like, see you guys next year, and I hope you have a happy holidays, that sort of thing. But for whatever reason, I just never realized how close episode 60 was to the end of the year. So, I don't know, just wanted to point that out, because today as I sat down to record episode 61, I realized that damn, I never said anything last week. That's so weird, you know? But that aside, you know, it's now 2020. Hopefully all of you had a very happy New Year's. And even though it has been a bit rough, you know, even though we're only a few days into 2020, there have been quite a few rough news stories out there. I know all sorts of things are going on in the world. But regardless though, hopefully all of you have had a good holiday, and hopefully all of us have a good year in 2020. You know, trying to stay positive, look on the bright side. Let's just focus on all the stuff we want to get done, all the good stuff we're looking forward to. You know, that sort of thing. So, welcome to 2020, everybody. I'm excited. I hope you are too. With that aside, last week I had said that I was going to talk about some anime that we're supposed to wrap up, as well as I was going to talk about some stuff that I've been watching, you know, in the last few weeks, that basically I was going to roll it over from last week into this week. So, sure enough, this week I'm going to talk about a few anime that ended. I'm going to talk about some stuff that I've watched, you know, during the last few weeks and caught up on. And then, you know, I'll finish my week by talking about a game that I picked up for really cheap and that I was just playing. You know, I'll just discuss that real quick. So pretty full, pretty stacked week. So let's dive in. The first anime that I want to talk about that ended, I want to say last Friday. I want to say ended like last Friday, like right after I finished recording the podcast. The first anime that I want to talk about is Fire Force. And Fire Force, I would overall say I like it. I will admit that it is a very flawed show, and it is a pretty mediocre show. You know, it really does lean more towards being mediocre than great. For anyone who doesn't remember, since it was quite a while since I talked about it, Fire Force is the show. It's by the same person that made Soul Eater, and it's this world where, I don't know, like, I'm not really too sure about everything quite yet, but I know, like, there's some sort of, like, a fire/sun religion in that world. That's why, you know, take a step back. In this world, for whatever reason, sometimes people spontaneously combust and become, like, these fire demons. And when these fire demons appear, they start burning everything, you know, the way like a normal fire would do. And so when that happens, they have to send in a, you know, fire squad. And basically the fire squad, similar to like a firefighter, they go in there, they do their thing to put out the fire. What's different though, is that this, you know, world or whatever, it's very, like I said, it has this like fire/sun religion, like it's a big part of this world. So when the fire brigade goes in there and uses their different pyro moves or whatever to put out the fire, they also have a nun with them. And like the nun is basically there to like help pray for like the demon and help like the soul pass on to the other world, I guess. Like it's a weird thing like that where they mix, you know, like firefighters with like religion basically. And, you know, the lore and story of the world, it's pretty interesting. The characters, I do like them. You know, I do think that each character has a different thing going on when it comes to like powers and what they look like and attitude and everything. I do think the characters are interesting. And the fights, when we get some fights, I do think the fights are pretty cool. However, where the anime gets gets brought down is that it has a lot of really unnecessary, it has a lot of weird choices. Like, even when it comes to like editing and stuff, it has weird cuts and weird framing. When it comes to like the characters, there's a lot of like unnecessary fan service and jokes that don't quite land. Sometimes, you know, characters appear out of nowhere, like when they're needed, then they're gone again. Similar to Bleach always had a problem where it tried to introduce like too many characters at once, and so it couldn't really focus on all of them. And I feel like Fire Force has that problem, whereas like they try to introduce too many characters all at once. And so an episode will be like this character, and then this character, and then this character. And they're just introducing all these characters and jumping all over the place, you know? So while I do like the show overall, and I do think it has interesting lore, and I think like the main goal of the hero, where, you know, he's trying to kind of avenge his family, and then he finds out that there's more to this world, and there's like this conspiracy where people are causing others to like combust and become fire demons. Like, I do think it has an interesting story. And like I said, the fights and characters are interesting, but unfortunately, it just feels like it drags on like too much. And it feels like it has filler almost, where they take the time to introduce all these characters and stuff. Like, it's kind of hard to, you know, really explain if you haven't really watched the show, but it's the kind of show where it has potential, and I really do hope that season 2 fixes it, because it has lots of good stuff going on, but it is not the best, you know? Like, if I had to give it a rating, I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10, because like I said, it has interesting lore, interesting characters, interesting fight stuff. The characters are all very unique and everything, you know, they have different interesting designs and powers and stuff, but it has a lot of unnecessary and weird choices. So Fire Force, would I recommend it? I guess I'd recommend it, but like very like you know, it's like I don't strongly recommend it, but you know, if you're into action stuff, that sort of thing, maybe this will be like your taste, you know, but I don't know. I would say it's one of those things where there's better shows to watch, but if you like want to watch it, I wouldn't like totally like say it's a bad idea, like it's an okay show. So I don't know if I really explained myself, but there you go. Alrighty, moving on. Another show that ended just recently was the show called Cautious Hero. The hero is overpowered but overly cautious. And this one, it's one of those ones that I ended up watching very late into the anime season. Honestly, when I started watching it, I think it was already I want to say like 7 or 8 episodes in, but I had heard some good stuff about it, so I decided to check it out. And for those of you who don't remember, Cautious Hero, basically, it takes the idea of heroes getting to a summon to another world and kind of plays with the tropes and turns them on their head. You know, in isekai anime, usually you summon a hero to another world and the hero's excited to explore everything and level up and gain party members and just like be a big damn hero, you know? Here, basically it turns all of that around, because when the goddess summons the hero that's supposed to help her save the world, first of all, he has no respect for her, and second of all, he is so cautious. Like, he wants to be so prepared for everything that he doesn't even leave the hub world until he's like at level like 15 or something like that. Like, he just takes the time to grind and be at like his most powerful. And so it's the kind of thing where if you play a lot of RPGs, I think you'll enjoy this anime. I think you'll kind of enjoy seeing that attitude that, well, most, like I said, most isekai anime, they're all about like friendship and leveling up and learning new powers and stuff. Basically, this guy, you know, ignores all that, and he's always just like grinding and leveling up. He's stocking himself with like 1,000 potions, so he's like ready. He like overkills every enemy because he wants to make sure it's dead. And I don't know, it's just kind of funny. Like I said, if it's one of those things where you've played RPGs and you've ever acted kind of, you know, cautious, or like you want to be like overpowered and stuff, then it's funny seeing it, you know, animated, like in animated form. It's pretty funny. The thing I will say, though, is that while that is true for like the first 10 episodes, I don't want to spoil it, but for the last 2 episodes, the anime does go in like a totally different direction tone-wise. Like, I don't want to ruin it because it is a very like big change and it's a big surprise, and like where it goes is interesting, but I will say that I recommend it because the first 10 episodes, it's basically a parody. It's basically subverting all tropes, that sort of thing. And then for the last 2 episodes, it kind of changes things again and goes in a totally different serious tone that is interesting when you're seeing it. It actually like does surprise you, and it does kind of leave you like, wow, that's really like crazy, you know? So I don't want to ruin it. I'm not going to explain what I'm talking about, you know, in too much detail. But overall, Cautious Hero, the hero is overpowered but overly cautious. I would recommend it. I'd probably give it like a 7.5 out of 10. You know, I think it's not like the best anime in the world. I wouldn't say it's like I've used the term before. I wouldn't call it like a main event title, but it is still like pretty enjoyable, pretty funny, and then near the end, you know, it kind of messes with your emotions a little bit. So I'd say it's an interesting anime. I'd say go check it out, you know? So there you go. Finally, this last anime that I want to talk about, it's the kind of anime that I would call like a main event title, because it's just this anime that's so different and interesting and has a really high production value. Like, I really like it, all right? It's been a while since I've talked about it, but I'm of course talking about a little anime called Vinland Saga. And for those of you who don't remember, because like I said, the last time I talked about this was like back in like July maybe when it first came out. Vinland Saga is the anime that has to do with Vikings. When it starts, we're following this protagonist. His name is Thors, and basically, he's like this crazy Viking warrior that is so powerful and so strong, he can probably take out like a dozen men by himself. However, he's tired of fighting, he's tired of being a warrior and that sort of thing. So we see that he fakes his death, moves over to some little village in the middle of nowhere, and starts a family. And, years later, he's settled into that life or whatever, he's put everything behind him. But basically, Vikings show up at his doorstep, and they go, hey, England is fighting the Danes, we need your help. We'll even forgive the fact that you deserted us, because like that's how strong you are, that's how much we need you. And I'm not going to really spoil what happens, because some interesting things happen there. But let's just say that, Thors isn't the protagonist the whole way through. And we do end up transferring over to his son, Thorfinn. And Thorfinn, his whole thing, he wants vengeance. He's running around during all of these battles. He's taking place in them. He's being kind of like a moody brat, which is weird. But I don't know, it's just so interesting because, like, number one, Thorfinn isn't the best character in the world, but he's still interesting, seeing how he, like, thirsts for vengeance and everything he does to supposedly get that vengeance. Like, it is interesting. And even besides that, even if the protagonist isn't the most interesting character, all of the other characters around him are just so well written and so interesting, So, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. Like, I'm just really trying to dance around things because I don't want to, like, spoil too much. But, overall, Vinland Saga is just this very mature, very down-to-earth story about something that anime doesn't really talk about. Like, when else have you really seen an anime about Vikings? I've never seen that before, so I was drawn to it. And like I said, like, the art style's really good, the voice acting's great, where the story goes is really interesting. I'm not sure if it's historically accurate. I'll admit I'm not well versed in any of that part of history, but it seems very like realistic mostly, so like that's really cool. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. And I would call it one of those like dark horse series that just came out of nowhere. Unfortunately, it was stuck on Amazon, so I don't know how easy it would be to like track it down. But it's just one of those anime that if you run upon it and you watch it, it's just so good and so interesting. And yeah, it ran for 24 episodes. And like every episode, I was excited to see what would happen next, because it's just so interesting and so, like I said, unique with like its subject matter. So do I recommend Vinland Saga? Definitely do. I would say it's like one of my favorite of last year, maybe even like one of the favorites of the season. Although I don't really know what season it falls into. That's where it gets complicated. But definitely one of my favorites of 2019. Really loved it. Really am excited for a season 2 or whatever. And yeah, I would say if you can get your hands on it, check it out. Alrighty guys, with anime out of the way, let's move on to other stuff that I watched and got caught up on. The following 3 things are 3 things that I caught up on. It's kind of a mix. Like, some of them I started watching the week before last. Some of them I finished watching, this week, whatever. But as I said, during last week's podcast, it's stuff that I could have talked about last week, but I decided to roll it into this week. So, it's stuff that I've been watching for like the last, 2 or 3 weeks, is what I'm trying to say. So the first thing that I want to talk about was Camp Season 4. For anyone who remembers, I covered Camp over on my channel. I did a review of Season 1 through 3, and basically, it's this show by Rooster Teeth that has to do with these kids at a camp. And basically each kid they have their own different hobby going on. Like, there's a very obvious, space kid, skateboarding kid that, is always doing magic tricks, that sort of thing. And what's interesting is that you kind of see all of them hanging out in this camp. And we see that the protagonist, I guess you can call him the protagonist, is this kid called Max, who's really bitter. And, as the series progresses, you kind of find out why he's bitter about being at this camp. And it's just this really interesting comedy that, I don't know, I think the characters are really well done. I think, each of them is like really like interesting. I think the dynamics between the characters is interesting. I think the story, they have interesting storylines that are really funny, really unique. I like the humor. It goes very dark sometimes. It goes really like juvenile, that sort of thing. But I like it within the context of the show. I think it's really funny. And yeah, sometimes it even has some emotional moments, surprisingly. Like there's moments that, like I said, when we kind of learn about Max and why he's at the camp and we see like kind of a bit about his life, it kind of does, pull your heartstrings a little bit. So it even has that. And sure enough, last time I watched the show, I hadn't watched all of season 3. I think I was missing like 4 episodes, and then I kind of got busy and fell off like the wagon or whatever. But recently, I watched the last 4 episodes of season 3. I watched all season 4, and, I would keep recommending the show. I think the show's really fun, really funny. I like that this season, season 4, they have more episodes focused on different characters. I think whenever there's like an ensemble cast, I think it's kind of fun when they give other characters the limelight. So like that was really fun. It didn't really have as much emotional moments as other seasons, but they do still have some good, episodes here and there, some good moments where you kind of see characters growing and changing. It's like that was really fun. And so yeah, I continue to recommend the show. I think it continues to be a really funny, really interesting premise show with some really interesting characters and fun character dynamics. So, there you go. I would say check it out. I think all of it is up on YouTube currently. So I think you can watch it for free. If not, I think you can go to roosterteeth.com, and I think all the episodes are there, So I'm pretty sure everything is released now. So you should be able to check it out for free. So there you go. Next up, another show that I watched, and honestly, this surprised me because I'll admit that when I watched the preview trailer for this show a few months back, I wasn't impressed. To me, it just seemed like very over the top and kind of edgy, and like lol random. But when I watched it, I'll admit I kind of fell in love with the show. I think it's really interesting so far. And I am, of course, talking about the animated show Harley Quinn. I believe it's currently like a DC streaming service exclusive. However, I saw some episodes online. They were all the way up to episode 5. They were uploaded, and that's when I decided to check them out. And like I said, even though I wasn't impressed with the preview trailer, when I actually started watching the show, it works well within the show. And to be fair, the show isn't just lol random, though it does have a bit of that. It does have some good character interactions and jokes and stuff, But taking a step back, like I said, Harley Quinn is basically an animated show. I think it's an exclusive to the DC universe, or whatever you call it, streaming app. And basically it's a show that follows Harley Quinn. When the show starts, basically, she is kind of looking for respect, as you can say, because, she says herself, she wants to be a part of the Legion of Doom, and she wants to be taken seriously as a villain, but unfortunately, everyone only sees her as the Joker's girlfriend. They see her as a minion. And as for the Joker himself, even though she says, hey, we're supposed to be partners, and I have ideas, and that sort of thing, he is always putting her down. Because he sees her as expendable and he doesn't love her or anything, he just sees her as an expendable minion. He doesn't care about her. So when the series starts, we see that it takes her a whole episode, but Harley finally gets it through her thick head that the Joker doesn't love her. He never has. And so she decides to break up with him and become her own supervillain. And where the show gets really fun is that we kind of get to see a villain. Even though, that's what's interesting about Harley Quinn, even though she is established and we do know some things about her, it has always been kind of in relation to Joker, And so what's really interesting is that we kind of get to see her on her own, starting from the ground up, trying to become a serious supervillain. And of course, it has a lot of comedy and stuff, and it's just fun seeing stuff her breaking up with Joker. And how Joker, doesn't want to admit that she broke up with him. He says that, oh, he broke up with her. And seeing all the villains reacting to it and, they're not really sure what to take of it. That stuff's really fun. And there's, another episode that has to do with her trying to hire henchmen. And, once again, nobody takes her seriously. Everybody sees her as, an associate of the Joker. They kind of look down on her because she's, a female, that sort of thing. But, by the end of the episode, she does have her little crew together. And seeing her make her crew and put it together, that's really fun. And there's another episode that has to do with her and how she wants an arch nemesis because she realizes that like every supervillain has an arch nemesis, you know? Like Batman has Joker, you know, Superman has Lex Luthor, that sort of thing. And so seeing her trying to like get a nemesis and like all of the comedy around that, I thought that was really fun. And so I don't know, like I've really enjoyed the show so far. Like even though it does get kind of like a bit like lol randomy sometimes, overall I would say it's a very like well thought out, well put together show. You know, like I like the meta-ness of it. Like I said, of her trying to like build her way up and all that. I like the character interactions. I think the characters are funny. I don't know, like you just really have to watch it. Like it's hard to explain, you haven't watched it, but you know, and it's not gonna be for everybody, but I think it's the kind of thing where if you watch it, you know, many of you will like it because it's just a fun show overall. Seeing this character on her own, trying to build herself up. And like I said, all the comedy that comes from the character interactions and like the, you know, meta-ness of trying to like be a supervillain. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. Currently there's 5 episodes out and I think an episode comes out like every Friday. So maybe right now, you know, in a few hours, maybe they'll upload one to, the site where I watch it, you know, I don't know, we'll see. But I like the show, I recommend it, I thought it was a lot of fun. Will it be for everybody? No. Maybe you'll like it, so I'd say check it out, you know, there you go. Finally, the last show that I want to talk about that I caught up to in recent weeks is Ducktales, the 2017 reboot. And yeah, I mean, if for some of you who might remember, I covered the pilot episode back when it first came out, you know, back during 2017. If you remember, you know, I said that I liked it. I said that even though it's like definitely a different style and it has a different humor and stuff from the original series, I said that I liked the new direction, that I thought it was fun, and I liked that it had like a whole mystery aspect where it seems like they're gonna focus on, you know, what happened to the nephew's mother. You know, why did she leave them with Donald? Like, it seemed like it had a bit of a mystery at its core. And sure enough, I watched all of season 1. I don't remember if I ever talked about it on the podcast or the channel, but, you know, I did follow all of season 1 basically as it was coming out. Every time there was a new episode, I would watch it. When it came to season 2, I think that's where I kind of fell off the wagon, so to speak. I think I watched like the first like 3 or 4 episodes, and then I kind of just like, I don't know, I just got busy with other stuff and didn't really follow the show. But yeah, for whatever reason, during this last month, you know, in December, I was just like, hey, whatever happened to DuckTales? I should catch up on that. And I ended up catching up, and it's hard to really talk about without spoiling anything. But I just want to say that I think the show, though it is a bit hit and miss, you know, not every episode is great. Overall, I do think it's a very fun show, and I do recommend it, you know. I think the characters are great. You know, like the guy who voices Scrooge McDuck, he does a great job with his voice of Scrooge McDuck. That's a lot of fun. The new voices and like, you know, personalities of the 3 nephews, even though they're different, I like it because it's kind of cool that instead of all of them being basically a copy of each other, I do think it's kind of cool how each of them has their own thing going on. I thought that was really interesting. Webby, you know, like their companion or whatever, she is a bit random and kind of all over the place, but overall, I think she's a fun character. When it comes to like storyline and plots, I think the episodes are usually pretty fun. I think it is pretty cool how they do connect. Overall, you know, like stuff that happens in one episode, it might happen in another episode. That mystery that I mentioned earlier with the boy's mother, it does keep coming back, and we see parts of it like throughout the season and stuff, so I think that's really cool. So yeah, like I said, it's a bit hard to talk about without really spoiling it, because there's stuff all over the place that happens that I don't want to like really get into. But overall, I did enjoy the show. I think it's really fun. I think the character interactions are fun. I think the fan service stuff is really cool. Like, you know, they talk about like Darkwing Duck. They've hinted that in season 3, they're going to bring back more of those characters from, you know, like Goof Troop and Chip and Dale, like that sort of things. Like, that's really fun. And overall, yeah, I just enjoy the show. I think it's a really fun show. Not every episode's great, but the episodes that are great definitely elevate the show. You know, I think it's a fun show overall. I think the way it balances everything is really well, and I enjoy it, you know. I would recommend it. So, there you go. Finally, the last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to my week, I'm gonna talk about only really briefly because I know I've mentioned this game before on the channel, but I just was able to pick up a cheap copy of Katamari Damacy REROLL, that's the Switch version. Went to a GameStop with a friend, was able to pick up a copy for $10, and basically popped into the Switch. And I've been playing it, I don't remember the last time I talked about it on the channel. I think I had mentioned it coming to the Switch and mentioned that I was excited to retry it. And sure enough, popped into the Switch, been playing it here and there. And for anyone who doesn't know about the game, it's just this really fun game, very chill game with like really nice music, where basically your objective is to roll this ball and everything you run into kind of sticks to the ball. And your objective is to just roll these huge blocks of items that if it's big enough, the main character's father, he turns them into stars in the sky. Like it's weird premise, it's weird gameplay wise, but trust me, it's a fun game. It's really chill and it has really nice music. So I say check it out. It's a fun game, give it a try. That's what I've been playing. So just want to throw that out there at the end. Alrighty guys, with that being said, that brings me to the end of my week. As I mentioned near the beginning, I don't know, I feel like it was a pretty stacked week. I mean, there's anime that ended, TV shows that I caught up on, and even a game that I've been playing here and there, the last week or so. So, I don't know, hopefully you guys got something out of that, so there you go. With the new anime season coming up, look forward to me mentioning new anime during the next few weeks, Hopefully for those of you who are fans of anime, hopefully you're excited for that. And with that being said, with that out of the way, I think we should transfer over to the news because it is we have like a range of news stories, and I'm pretty excited to talk about some of these. For instance, this first news story, as someone who's been following this project since like 2013, just hearing this news about it is exciting, I'm of course talking about, as the title of the article states, Mother 4 fan game rebranded Oddity teaser trailer. For those of you who don't know, since, I don't even know when they started development, but yeah, a long time ago, this group of people, they started a fan game called Mother 4. Like legit, they were just calling it Mother 4, like it's supposed to be a sequel to, Mother 3. And since then, they had mentioned that they might change the name because they don't want to get like a cease and desist from Nintendo. And I don't know, it's just been a wild ride where I think they originally said they were going to release the game back in 2014. That never happened. It's been very, like the development's just had so much trouble. I think they've like scrapped ideas and like restarted a lot. It's just been a mess, And as someone who's been following it since 2013, it has been kind of frustrating. Because sometimes they show some footage, it looks like the game's going great, and then they'll be gone for like a year, and you don't know if the project's dead or whatever. So it's been quite an experience following this game, But fortunately, as the title of the article states, and as the news story talks about, it looks like they finally decided to change the name. Instead of Mother 4, they're calling the game Oddity. And yeah, instead of it being a sequel, they changed some names around. It's supposed to be like its own unique thing. But it's definitely, if you look at the gameplay and like the art and stuff, this game is definitely like a spiritual successor to the Mother series. And what's exciting is that even though it does say, it'll be out when it's ready, I think the fact that they showed a teaser trailer that looks really good, by the way, and that they did like a name rebrand, like hopefully that means that they've really made progress, Because like I said, it's been just such a like terrible development, story where like they've just restarted and had so much trouble and stuff that hopefully this is a sign that the game, is getting there. I'm excited because as a fan of the Mother series, I've been waiting for this game forever. And seeing that games like Undertale and Oddity are continuing like the spirit of the series, like that's always really exciting. And I don't know, I'm just excited for this project. And like I said, I've just been following it forever. So seeing news about it and seeing that it's still alive is nice. So yeah, as always, link in the description below. You can read about the story for yourself and check out the trailer, all that stuff. And yeah, if you're a fan of the Mother series, let me know. Tell me if you're excited for this, because I am beyond excited. And yeah, I just hope that there's something coming out soon, So there you go. Moving on, and speaking of games I'm excited for, as the title of the article states, Animal Crossing New Horizons New Year Japanese TV commercial. So yeah, I've talked about my love of Animal Crossing on the channel and the podcast before. Animal Crossing is one of those series that I really love. One of my favorite characters ever is Isabelle, you know, like the little secretary. I love to really play as her in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I like to play as her sometimes in Smash Bros. And yeah, I mean, just Animal Crossing, I just love it. I just think it's a really fun series, and I'm really excited for the game coming out, you know, March 20th. And yeah, it's just one of those things where, not much of a news story, but I just think it's really fun how they have this new trailer that it kind of shows more, I would say, of why in-universe, why people are on the island, you know? Because the whole point of this game is that compared to other games where everyone lives like in a little village and you move in and, you know, you interact with them and stuff, the premise here is that everyone's on a deserted island and you're kind of starting up your own village from scratch. And, you know, I'd always kind of wondered, you know, I wonder why everyone besides the player character, like what drew them to it. And the little trailer, it kind of just shows that it's because Tom Nook, he's basically selling this like getaway package to people and everyone's watching and they're really impressed. So, I mean, I guess that kind of explains why everyone's on the island. Basically, Tom Nook sold this package to everybody, and that's why this time they're shaking it up. And instead of living in like a little town or whatever, everyone's on the island because everyone just had the same idea of starting from scratch and they're into it, I guess. So, I don't know, just fun stuff. I'm excited. I really can't wait to play Animal Crossing. It's only like 2 months away, so I'm excited. And yeah, as always, you're free to look at the trailer below. Fun stuff. I'm excited. So, there we go. Moving on to movie news, this first one, not really much to talk about. It's honestly more of a lead up to the second story, but I just thought it was kind of interesting in its own way. Basically, as the title of the article states, former Disney CEO prefers The Mandalorian over the rise of Skywalker. And yeah, I just thought this article was interesting, even though it doesn't say too much, for 2 reasons. Well, 3 reasons, actually. Number 1, I thought it was interesting because I didn't know who the former CEO of Disney was. You know, I've just always heard of Bob Iger recently, so I didn't know who was before him. And if you read about it in the article, it is really interesting how they talk about how he did a lot for Disney. You know, it says that he basically helped revive Disney's animation department. He oversaw the production of many live action movies. He apparently, you know, pushed for like innovations when it came to like home video and launching the Disney Cruise Line, that sort of thing. So yeah, that seems really interesting. I'm like, had no idea that this guy did so much for Disney. Like, that's kind of interesting to read about. So like, that's number 1. Number 2, I just thought it was really interesting to just read about this guy who used to be such a big part of Disney, reading about him kind of talking about how he prefers The Mandalorian. I thought that was interesting, you know? Like, basically, he says that Rise of Skywalker, he thought it was acceptable, but he did think that it was, like, really fan servicey and didn't have a lot of emotion to it, that sort of thing. And he says, you know, he really praises The Mandalorian and that sort of thing. So I thought it was just kind of interesting seeing him give his opinion. You know, that was kind of cool. And number 3, the reason I thought that this article was interesting is because it's kind of funny seeing this guy praise The Mandalorian so much. And it is interesting to see how so many people are coming out and saying that The Mandalorian is like one of the best things Star Wars has done in like the last, I don't know, like decade or decades or whatever. But then, leading to my other story, you know, so switching over to my next story, as the title of this article states, now that The Mandalorian is over, people are canceling Disney Plus. So that's what I thought just made the 2 articles so interesting when I read them back to back. You know, over here, you have this guy, did a bunch for Disney. Honestly, he's giving his honest opinion about how he thinks The Mandalorian's so good, and he's praising it, and he is kind of giving a nod to the new CEO, and he's kind of telling him, you know, like, good job for having the foresight to, like, let the show get greenlit. And people obviously do like the show, but then it's kind of ironic because you jump over the next news story, and it's all about how, without The Mandalorian, people are just canceling their Disney subscription, which it makes sense because they're like, there's not really anything I want to watch. I'd rather just subscribe again when the next season is up. But of course, you know, I doubt that's what Disney wants because they're losing all the subscriptions. So I don't know. I just thought it was like a really interesting story. And it is really ironic how people love this show and it's what's like really bringing in the subscriptions. But at the same time, with it gone, that's what's going to lose Disney a bunch of money. You know, like, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. You're free to, as always, read the article, links in the description below, talks all about it. And, you know, I just thought it was weird. I think it's kind of funny and ironic. So, you know, there you go. Moving on to my last movie news story. This one's actually an update to one that I covered fairly recently. And it's funny how sometimes, I'll cover something and then like a few weeks later, we have like an update to it. But as the title of the article states, Uncharted movie loses another director in Travis Knight. So yeah, I don't know how many of you remember, but like I said, not too long ago, I talked about, the Uncharted movie and how it's been a project that's been in the works for a while and how they've been really looking for like a director, blah, blah, blah. And, the last update is that the guy who has directed the new Bumblebee movie, as well as some of the movies for, is it Leica Studio? Is that what that's called? Like the stop motion animation guys, like Kubo and the Two Strings. That guy, he was slated to direct the Uncharted movie. And I think that's fine. He seems like a decent director. And honestly, Uncharted doesn't seem like a very hard movie to make. Basically, it's supposed to be like Indiana Jones. If instead of Indiana Jones being like an archaeologist, instead if he's like a treasure thief who's cocky. But besides that, it's literally just Indiana Jones, And so I thought, hey, I shouldn't be too hard of a movie to make. Hopefully Travis Knight, he seems like a decent director. Hopefully he can make it work. But for whatever reason, I don't know, this movie is just having a lot of trouble. And yeah, it says that supposedly Travis Knight, he has like scheduling issues, and so he's backing out. And so once again, the movie doesn't have a director. And I don't know, man, it's just weird how this happens. And it's so weird how some movies just seem cursed, Because like I said, even though this is a video game movie, it feels like one that would be very easy to make. Because like I said, it's just an adventure movie. It doesn't really have to have anything too crazy to it, But I don't know, for whatever reason, it's just not coming together. So just wanted to share that, like I said, as a bit of a update to when I've talked about it before. But there you go. Once again, will the Uncharted movie come out? Who knows? It is slated to come out supposedly at the end of 2020, but it's probably not going to happen. So only time will tell, Finally, my last news story is a pretty brief one. But it's just something I wanted to share because, I don't know, whenever I see stuff that I'm into appear, like in other circles or whatever, I always think that's really interesting. And as the title of the article states, Jeopardy rings in the new year with Attack on Titan. And so I just thought it was really interesting that this isn't the first time anime and manga have come out in Jeopardy, but this is the first time I've heard about it at least. That yeah, apparently during the first episode of the new year, one of the questions had to do with Attack on Titan. And, it shows a picture of one of the panels from Attack on Titan, and it asks people, what do you call this type of, comic book? And of course, the answer is manga. And I don't know, I just thought that was kind of fun. And then if you look farther down in the article, it actually shows other times that anime and manga have been in the show, as well as, the first time that, apparently Attack on Titan came up. And so I don't know, I just thought it was one of those interesting things. I think the videos are kind of fun. I think hearing about anime and manga in something that's usually so, serious and uptight as Jeopardy, I just thought that was really fun, And I think the fact that Attack on Titan has become so popular that, it's become, a part of pulp culture and general knowledge and that sort of thing. I just think that's kind of fun. I think it's kind of cool. So that's why I wanted to share the story. Link is in the description below, and it has the 2 clips. And yeah, like I said, it's probably not the last time that anime and manga will be on Jeopardy, but it's still interesting to see it happen, So there you go. Alrighty guys, with that being said, that brings us to the end of another news week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the range of news stories. I feel like there was a pretty good balance of all sorts of video game stuff and movie stuff and anime. I just thought that it was a nice range of stories. So hopefully you guys found something to be informative, educational, entertaining, that sort of thing. There you go. With that being said, it's time to transfer over to the last segment of the podcast, which is the Content Creator Spotlight. But this time, I want to do something a little bit different. Basically, from what I've noticed, there are channels that I've talked about before, and, there are creators that I love their work, but I had recently noticed that some people, I hadn't seen new things from them. And so I kind of started digging around, and yeah, the following 4 channels, I'm gonna share 4 channels real quick. I don't know, it seems like these guys are either inactive or they're all together have disappeared. And so I kind of just wanted to share these 4 channels, put them in the spotlight. The first 2, their channels are still up. So I would say if you're able to, check out their videos, leave comments, subscribe, talk to them. Maybe they'll come back. We'll see. The other 2 channels, unfortunately, they're basically gone, and I don't really know how you would contact them. So for the next 2 channels, if you guys could actually say, what happened to them, if you guys know, I'd appreciate to know what happened to them. So basically, yeah, for this content creator spotlight this week, I'm gonna share 4 channels. The first 2, they're channels that they haven't made content in like a year. And so I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of just hoping, like I said, hopefully they haven't quit YouTube. And as for the second 2 channels, it looks like they've quit YouTube. It looks like they're totally gone. So if anyone could provide any info, I'd appreciate it. All right. So when it comes to my first channel, the first channel that I want to talk about really quickly is a channel called Mr. Panda. And Mr. Panda, I had talked about him a couple of times before. He's this really awesome, really bubbly, down-to-earth guy that he would cover a bunch of Nintendo games. And for whatever reason, the last game he ever covered was Cadence of Hyrule. That was months ago, and he has gone totally silent since then. No new updates on his channel, nothing on Twitter. He doesn't even comment on other people's videos. He always used to comment on my videos. He used to hang out on Reddit, that sort of thing. Guy looks like he's completely gone. I don't know. I mean, it's the kind of thing where I don't want to like pry, and I don't want to be messaging him or anything in case it's something personal. So like I said, I'm just hoping that maybe if we watch his content, leave comments and like subscribe and stuff, maybe that'll draw his attention. Maybe that'll make him come back. But that's the first channel I want to talk about because he has a great channel, lots of great reviews and stuff. And the fact that it looks like he quit YouTube really sucks. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there and say, check out his stuff. And if you know what happened to Mr. Panda, let me know. The second channel that I want to talk about, very similar to Mr. Panda, it's a channel called 2 Takes. And basically, it was this really fun channel where there was this couple, and they would do all sorts of like reviews on IMDb's 100 worst films. And it was really fun because, they didn't update too often, maybe like once a month. But, once a month, they would like look at a movie. They would talk about how crappy it is. They would like make fun of it. They had sketches revolving around it, all that sort of stuff. And then sometime last year, they just stopped uploading. And when it comes to like their Twitter, it does look like they kind of retweet things here and there, but there hasn't been like a single word if they're coming back. So like that really sucks, So similar to Mr. Panda, 2 Takes, love their content, really creative, really fun. I don't really want to pry, I don't know if it's something like personal happening with them, but same thing, guys. I'm hoping that maybe if we leave comments or subscribe, maybe that'll bring them out to like say something, break the radio silence. And same thing, if you know what happened to them, let me know because I am genuinely curious why they seem to have quit YouTube, so there you go. When it comes to these last 2 channels, unfortunately, these guys seem to be gone, like I can't see, like they only used to really have the YouTube channel. It didn't really seem like they used to have like a Twitter or like any other social media. And so it looks like these guys are gone. And these guys, it sucks because you can't even watch their videos because their channels are just empty. But if you guys have any information, please let me know what happened to these guys. The first one, his channel's name was Mike's Collectible Madness. Basically, he used to be this awesome channel where he was always like reviewing and unboxing stuff, like really fun stuff. He was always showing off figures and movies. Every week he would do a thing where he would say, hey guys, here's 7 random movies I think you should watch this week. Here's why I like these movies. And he was just overall a really nice guy with really fun content. And yeah, for whatever reason, his channel's just blank now. And I don't remember him ever having any other social media listed. So I'm just really wondering what happened to him. So if anyone knows what happened to Mike's Collectible Madness, let me know. Finally, and similar to Mike's Collectible Madness, I had covered him not too long ago. He was someone I barely started following like recently, but there's this channel called TeeJay the Gamer that he is gone. Like I remember like before the holidays, he was releasing all sorts of remixes and stuff. And that's what he did. He did remixes, he did original raps, all sorts of awesome stuff with music. And I was watching him until fairly recently, and I was having fun and commenting on his stuff. But now if you go to his channel, it says his channel doesn't exist. that his channel is gone. And so that sucks. I don't know if maybe he got like a copyright strike or like too many or whatever. I don't know if he closed down his channel voluntarily. But yeah, if you guys know what happened to TeeJay the Gamer, let me know, because I used to really love his channel. And the fact that his channel's just gone and that there seems to be like no way to contact him, that really sucks. So I know this content creator spotlight was a bit different, guys, but I don't know. It sucks seeing YouTubers just kind of disappear or quit seemingly out of nowhere without saying goodbye. And so yeah, these channels had been on my mind for a while, guys. So once again, if you really know what happened to Mr. Panda, Two Takes, Mike's Collectible Madness, or TeeJay the Gamer, let me know what happened to them, because I'm really curious. And when it comes to those first two, I mean, they do at least still have the channel up. So if you guys, like I said, can comment, subscribe, that sort of thing, maybe bring them out of the woodworks, that would be nice. But yeah, that's my content creator spotlight for this week. I know it's a little bit different, but reach out to them if you can, guys. Let me know what happened, because yeah, it just really sucks that they're just gone out of nowhere. So there you go. Alrighty, guys, with that being said, that brings us to the end of another podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my podcast and got something out of it, whether it was me talking about my week, any of the range of news stories, or me, putting into the spotlight these YouTubers that seem to be missing, whether one thing or another. Hopefully you guys enjoy my podcast. Hopefully there's something you guys got out of it, that sort of thing. And with that being said, I uploaded a video on Wednesday. It had to do with changes coming to the channel. So far, people seem to be really positive about it, really receptive. That's a relief, because I gotta admit, I am nervous about these changes that I want to integrate. So that's exciting. And yeah, I just look forward to content this new year, guys. I am shaking things up, but hopefully you guys enjoy what I'm trying to do. And with that being said, I'll try my hardest to be back here next week for episode 62. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful week. And until then, my name is a Wannabe Reviewer, and I'll catch you guys next time.